Hello, my name is Meredith Pendleton. I'm a junior here at Northern Arizona University, getting my undergraduate degree in Environmental and Sustainability Studies, BA, with an emphasis in global sustainability and a certificate in international forestry and conservation. This video will be a discussion of 3 questions from the Environmental Policy Paradox, chapters 9 through 10. I will discuss 2 questions from chapter 9 and 1 question from chapter 10. The first question from Chapter 9 is, what is desertification and how does it relate to farming? How does it relate to soil erosion? Can you think of any environmental problems that are tied into desertification? So desertification is the process of turning productive land into wasteland. This is important to farming because when productive land becomes a wasteland, nothing can grow. The United States has become an important agricultural source for a lot of the world that is experiencing desertification. As desertification slowly takes hold in the United States, we will be unable to produce enough food for ourselves, let alone another part of the world. That is why it is so important to understand the impact of desertification on productive land, even if the process of desertification is slow. Desertification relates to soil erosion because soil erosion is prevented by plants and biological soil crusts that retain the moisture and the structure of the soil. When desertification takes away these plants and biological soil crusts, the soil can no longer hold itself together and erosion begins. As for other environmental problems that are tied into desertification, as we lose more and more plants to desertification, we are also losing precious carbon sinks that suck the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Without these carbon sinks, more carbon dioxide will be released into the atmosphere and will contribute to climate change, thanks to the greenhouse gas effects of carbon dioxide. The second question from Chapter 9 is, what is wilderness? Is wilderness different from roadless area? How does the Bundy case exemplify some of the problems with wilderness policy? To start, wilderness is defined by the Wilderness Act of 1964 as an area of undeveloped land retaining its primal character and influence without permanent improvements or human habitation. To summarize, this means that any land without the influence of humans and their structures that holds a wildlife nature or a feeling of solitude is wilderness. This is different from a roadless area because a roadless area is specifically a section of a national forest that is off limits to road building and logging. A roadless area is still open to hiking, fishing, hunting, camping, and human influence, but it cannot have roads or logging. Wilderness must have no human influence whatsoever. As for the Bundy case, it was a standoff between Bundy, a rancher, and the BLM, or the Bureau of Land Management. Bundy continued to graze his cattle on federal protected land without paying his grazing fees. This land also held an endangered species of desert tortoise. Thus, the land was designated as wilderness and should not have any human influence. Because of this, Bundy was violating the Wilderness Act of 1964. But he believed he had a right to graze his cattle there. This shows that the government's distinction of what type of land a piece of land is can be controversial. If the land is considered wilderness, then why allow people to graze there with grazing fees? Doesn't this distinction mean zero human influence? There needs to be more guidelines in the Wilderness Act to correctly define these types of land. The last question is from Chapter 10 and is, how does desertification affect food production? Explain why this is especially occurring in Africa. Has colonization affected desertification, and if so, how? I chose this question because it goes along with my first question. Since I already explained desertification in the first question, I will go straight into how it affects food production. As stated earlier, desertification causes productive land to no longer be productive. Therefore, it can no longer produce plants and agricultural crops necessary for food production. This causes food production to decrease in areas affected by desertification. Africa is especially affected by desertification. You can look at the Sahara Desert, which has grown 100 kilometers eastward between the years 1958 and 1975. This has caused a decline of 40% in per capita food production in North African countries. For the last part, I believe colonization has affected desertification because as places in Africa, Asia, and Australia were colonized, this introduced the colonizers to new foods they had never experienced before, and they wanted more of them. They began importing from their colonies to their motherland, and this increased demand. So, the most fertile places in the world began to feed people who did not even live there. This overproduction of the land caused the soil to lose nutrients, moisture, and later erode due to desertification. So yes, it is quite possible that colonization affected desertification in some areas of the world. That is the end of my 3 questions from the Environmental Policy Paradox chapters 9 and 10. Thank you for listening.